You know what's strange? Some people don't ride motorcycles because they want to be reckless. They ride because, for the first time, their mind feels properly occupied. The noise inside gets organized, the body gets a job. The world becomes sharper, cleaner, more readable. And for people who had to become unusually alert just to get through life, that can feel less like a hobby and more like recognition. Psychologists have started calling this kind of sharpened awareness traumatic intelligence, the ability to read danger, predict movement, and stay calm under pressure because your nervous system learned early that attention mattered. And for some riders, that is exactly why motorcycles feel so natural. Here's the psychological premise. A motorcycle rewards the very traits that trauma can forge: hyper-awareness, pattern recognition, emotional control, and fast decision-making. It asks you to stay present, scan constantly, and trust your instincts without letting fear take the wheel. And while not every rider has this background, and not every person with trauma ends up on a bike, there is a reason this machine can feel strangely familiar to certain people. It speaks the language of a mind that learned to survive by noticing everything. It gives that mind a place to go. The first sign is that your mind gets quieter the moment you start riding. Before the engine turns over, your thoughts may be scattered, heavy, or looping in the background. But once you're on the bike, everything narrows. The noise drops, the mental fog clears. You stop living inside your head and start living inside the moment. For a trauma-trained nervous system, that kind of focus can feel like relief. It is not just distraction, it is regulation. It is the difference between being trapped in thought and being asked to inhabit your body with purpose. That single-focus state can feel almost meditative, except it doesn't ask you to escape reality. It asks you to meet it directly. The second sign is that you notice everything. The car drifting half an inch in its lane, the brake lights 2 vehicles ahead, a pedestrian looking left before stepping out, the wheel angle of a truck that feels just slightly off. You don't think of this as fear, you think of it as awareness, and that's because your brain learned early that subtle details could matter. Traumatic intelligence is often just highly refined pattern detection. On a motorcycle, that instinct becomes useful instead of exhausting. The world gives you constant data, and your mind is built to read it. You often catch things before they become obvious to everyone else, and that can make riding feel less like reacting and more like staying one step ahead. The third sign is that you love how honest motorcycles are. A bike does not flatter you. It does not pretend. If your posture is off, if your braking is late, if your focus drifts for even a second, the machine tells you immediately. And for someone who grew up around mixed signals, that honesty can feel strangely comforting. There is something deeply stabilizing about a system that responds directly to what you do. No guessing, no emotional games, no hidden agenda, just input and response. If people were confusing in your life, the motorcycle can feel like a place where reality finally becomes clear. The bike gives you feedback without distortion, which can feel rare if you've spent years trying to decode other people instead of trusting them. The fourth sign is that you are drawn to control, but not the controlling kind. You don't want control over people, you want control over yourself, over your posture, over your timing, over the space between fear and action. A motorcycle gives you exactly that. It demands precision, but it also gives agency. Every turn, every lane change, every stoplight becomes a moment where your mind and body are working together instead of fighting each other. The bike doesn't ask you to be fearless, it asks you to be clear. And when your life used to feel unpredictable, that kind of direct influence can feel almost healing. That's why the ride can feel so calming. The control is earned, not forced. The fifth sign is that you love ritual more than most people understand. Helmet, gloves, jacket, mirrors, tires, route, weather, fuel. The sequence matters. Trauma often leaves people with a deep sensitivity to unpredictability, which is why routine can feel almost sacred. Ritual tells the nervous system, we know what happens next. It creates shape where life once felt shapeless. For some writers, the pre-ride checklist is not just practical, it is calming. It is a way of turning anxiety into preparation and preparation into confidence. The repetition tells your system that you are ready, and readiness is its own kind of safety. The ritual itself becomes a signal that the world is not as chaotic as it once felt.
The sixth sign is that writing makes your body feel organized. You may spend a lot of life feeling mentally overstimulated but physically disconnected, or physically tense but emotionally numb. Then you get on the bike and something aligns. Your posture matters, your breathing matters, your grip matters, your balance matters. Even your awareness becomes more coherent. The road keeps your senses awake without overwhelming them. That's why so many trauma-shaped people describe writing as grounding. It pulls you out of abstract fear and places you into immediate experience. Your body is no longer a place of tension, it becomes a tool, and that changes everything. It can feel like your body is finally working with your mind instead of against it. The seventh sign is that you feel most like yourself when no one is talking to you. For some people, silence is empty. For you, silence may be the first place you can actually hear yourself. Motorcycles give you solitude without stagnation. You are alone, but you are moving. You are quiet, but you are engaged. You are detached from social performance, but deeply connected to the moment. If you had to become emotionally self-sufficient early in life, that kind of solitude can feel less like isolation and more like restoration. That's why some writers describe the road as the only place they can think honestly. It gives you room to exist without explanation. The bike gives you movement without interruption, which is often exactly what a self-protective mind is looking for. The eighth sign is that you respect risk, but only when it is disciplined. You are not drawn to chaos for chaos's sake. What attracts you is the fact that writing requires respect. There are consequences, there are limits, there is skill. This matters because traumatic intelligence often makes people highly intolerant of fake danger. You do not want reckless, you want real. You want the kind of intensity that comes with mastery. That's why motorcycles can feel so powerful to people like you. They allow you to transform fear into focus and adrenaline into precision. It is controlled intensity, which is often the only kind the nervous system can trust. You want a challenge that sharpens you, not one that scatters you. The ninth sign is that trust comes easier with mechanics than with people. You can learn a bike, you can maintain a bike, you can listen to a bike and know when something is off. That consistency feels comforting because it mirrors what secure trust should feel like in human relationships: predictable, observable, earned. If people were unreliable when you were younger, you may have learned to trust systems more than personalities. A motorcycle fits that pattern perfectly. It asks for care, not blind faith, and in return, it becomes dependable in a way that can feel almost intimate. You know exactly what it needs, and that predictability can be surprisingly soothing. It's one of the few places where trust can be built slowly, honestly, and without emotional performance. The 10th sign is that writing feels like reclaiming a version of yourself you almost forgot existed. Not the wounded version, not the hypervigilant version, the capable version. The one that can move forward without apologizing for taking up space. The one that can turn awareness into action. On a motorcycle, your past does not disappear, but it stops being the only thing that defines you. The very instincts that once kept you safe become something you can direct, refine, and trust. That is why writing can feel spiritual for some people. It is not just freedom, it is conversion. It is proof that what once felt like survival can become skill. In that sense, the bike doesn't just carry you forward, it helps you remember who you were before survival became your whole identity. So if you recognize yourself in these signs, understand this:
You are not broken for feeling drawn to motorcycles. You are not trying to recreate pain just because you love the road. For some people, the bike becomes a place where traumatic intelligence finally has somewhere useful to go. The alertness becomes skill, the scanning becomes safety, the control becomes confidence, and the silence becomes peace. What others may call intensity, you may simply experience as being alive. What others may call overthinking, you may experience as awareness. And what others may think is just a machine may actually be the first thing that ever made your nervous system feel understood.